Hi everyone, welcome to a PSA Leadership Committee presentation with Nigel Waterton of Aronson Security Group, also known as ASG. Nigel's the Senior Vice President of Corporate Strategy and Development. Mr. Waterton leads a cross-disciplinary team with ASG, as well as with ASG's strategic partners to identify the key areas of optimization and innovation needed to deliver value to ASG clients. Nigel's been involved in the security industry since 1996, so thank you so much, Nigel. Welcome.
Thanks, everybody. I was asked to put a presentation together to, address the leadership committee, and I thought about this. There was a number of topics that came to mind, but this one for me was more recent, and and I wanted to address this. This situation as leaders. Sometimes we can be blinkered. It's not by design at times, but these 4 paths to regret is the belief that we're right. Even though what we see is not working, we're kind of like we want to pound that square peg into the round hole, because our energy and our insight kind of dictates that we have a better insight than anybody else. And again, we pour that energy into those strategies, and find ourselves, 6 months down the road that we're just not gaining that traction, as I put there, spinning our wheels. We then begin to reject everything else, and go, I am the island and everybody else around me is the storm, and we keep repeating that cycle. So that is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. So I began to think through this and go, okay, how do we adjust? If you go to the next slide, please, Julie. So it was looking at like new strategies to face these ongoing issues, and the tact I have taken recently, and I've given one example here where I actually was brought in as the kind of the broker, the coach between 2 departments inside another company, a client, that just couldn't communicate. It was a typical IT and security, and each one of them had driving factors that they thought that they were right, and they really weren't listening. They weren't talking. They were just basically positioning themselves to say, well, this is the way we do it, and security says, well, this is the way we want to do it. So it led me to the question going, okay, how and when should a coach get others involved? At what point do you reach that terminal velocity that you've got to put the speed brakes on things to stop yourself continuing to try to look for the different ideas, but you're blinkered by your own vision. So next slide, please. So new eyes. If you have been spinning your wheels, if you as a leader find yourself literally wondering why you're not gaining that traction, it is to get somebody else in, because they can state the obvious and they can actually see and help you, set aside your ideas in such a way that it doesn't seem that you're being pushed off of your opinion, but more that you begin to create a willingness to accept other ideas. And I've found the best time for a coach to do that is to be essentially honest and blunt, not to be rude or derogatory or otherwise, but literally to say, what, we need to step back, we need to take the emotion out of the equation, because when you are so invested at times, there's that old adage that you can't see the forest for the tree because you're so in front of it. So I began to look at it going, okay, how do we do that? If you go to the next slide, the new voice. A new voice turns the lights on by saying the same things in a different way. I'm a person that relies upon analogy, because you want to be able to bring it down to practicality, but at the same time you can intensify the gravity of a moment by getting everybody to realize what their team member, is saying. We use a solution inside of ASG called Personalysis. There's many versions of these things out here, but what they do is they allow you to understand how somebody else is listening and how you should communicate to that person, because 9 times out of 10, if you're communicating in the way that you expect to be answered, that means that person is not receiving that information the same way. Discomfort is a good thing, especially when you're stuck. We don't like an uncomfortable position, because the discomfort, puts us off of our axis of rationale, and it doesn't allow us to accept other thinking. So when you bring a new voice in, you're going to listen to all attended lectures or seminars, and you hear, ideas, and you go, you know what, one of those ideas was good. How do I adopt that? How do I change my thinking because, somebody gave me an insight there? And a new voice into the equation with the new eyes gives you that stepping stone. It gives you that kind of safe, space to explore, your own discomfort. Next slide, please. New perspectives. They reveal what's most important to you. We lose sight of our values after grinding away for a long time, because you are blinkered to the notion that everything else that you've done, all the effort, is then wasted. So we kind of do this equation inside our head going, I can't let go of that. It's if you've had a car that you've been nurturing along for a long, long time, and you're like, you know what, if I can just get that engine to last another 10,000 miles or maybe 40,000 miles, then I can go and buy a new car, not realizing that the effort that you've put into that is disproportionate to, the investment that you could go and make to actually buy a new vehicle. Because we don't want to just put that aside. Time has value, but at the same time, even though it does have a value perspective, you need to be able to kind of go back and say, you know what, I've invested all I can into it, and I now need to call it. I now need to call it quits. So again, you reconnect with what you really want by noticing how you judge those new perspectives. You can set aside your old preconceived conditions and then move forward. Next slide, please. New people. So again, new people, and this is where the client brought me in, because they couldn't bring somebody internally into the equation, because even with themselves internally, somebody was vested in an opinion. When you bring new people in, they have the ability to be unbiased. They don't have, as Phil Aronson would say, skin in the game. They can give you an objective opinion, which again, leaves you end up saying, I didn't think of that. And there's a safety in that statement for you, because somebody else is provoking you into a position that you haven't experienced before. And again, that new person at the table is just one way of many to address the issues of defending what isn't working. So I concluded on the last slide here with 2 questions. And I realized I made a spelling mistake there, which is bad. As an English major, which is really bad. But can you make yourself vulnerable? That would be question 1 to the group. And then how might you as leaders address the challenge of defending what isn't working in your own environments? Do you have the gravitas to look at yourself and go, you know what, I'm not the all-knowing, all-seeing Oz. There are others around me that are going to be able to give me input, and I make myself open to doing that. It's extraordinarily difficult as leaders to be able to look at either peers or subordinates to give you that, because they're then looking at you. As leaders in this industry, we are always asked for our expert opinion. But as I tell people, I'm not the expert. The smartest guy in the room is the one that says, I'm not the smartest guy in the room.
Thanks everyone for joining us for this Leadership Committee presentation on how to stop defending what isn't working, featuring Nigel Waterton of PSA's Leadership Committee. To experience more of the great content produced by PSA's Leadership Committee, please visit our website. It's psasecurity.com. This will conclude our presentation for today. Thanks so much, and I hope you all have a great day.